On my wedding day, my fiance left me. The man everyone called the calm, collected business elite was on his knees on the rooftop, begging the woman who bullied me not to jump. Guests laughed at me, saying the one who isn't loved is always the third wheel. But what they didn't know was I had taken everything Ethan owned and walked away, living the life of a rich woman. He went crazy, searching for me everywhere. Ella, I swear I love you. I took off my sunglasses and smiled. Sorry, do I know you? Chapter 1. In just 1 week, Ethan and I were supposed to have our wedding. Ethan, how do I look in this dress? Where'd he go? He was supposed to wait for me while I tried on the gown. But when I was done, Ethan had vanished. Not a word, nothing. The shop assistant looked awkward. After checking with the front desk, she told me he had taken a call and left a few minutes ago. I stood there, stunned. For the first time, the thought crossed my mind, maybe we shouldn't be getting married. Then I quickly shook it off. Ethan loves me. He wouldn't leave me like this, not without saying anything, especially not now. No matter how busy he was, he never left in the middle of a date. He was always so thoughtful, always wore a hair tie around his wrist, never let me carry my own bags. Wherever I needed him, he was there. Something serious must have come up. Just then, my phone buzzed. My best friend had texted, something big had happened. Luna was back. Luna, Ethan's first love. The woman who treated him like a fool. I stared at myself in the mirror, hair a mess, makeup smudged, looking like a ghost. I didn't bother calling him. Because I knew wherever Luna was, Ethan would be too. Chapter 2. I took the wedding invitations and went to the class reunion. Before I even pushed the door open, I heard a familiar voice. Long time no see. Ethan insisted on bringing me to the reunion. I feel so embarrassed. Images of being stripped, slapped, and locked in the bathroom rushed back into my mind. The scars that had healed began to ache again. Ethan saw me walk in and immediately lowered his head in panic. The room fell silent for a few seconds. Luna sensed the tension and turned to look at me. She acted like nothing had happened and handed me a glass of champagne. Ella, you've really spruced up. You're so much prettier now, I almost didn't recognize you. I brushed past her and stood next to Ethan. In a voice only the two of us could hear, I whispered. Hold me. My voice wavered. I was taking a gamble. A gamble that Ethan would care about his image. Everyone here knew about his past with Luna. And I was his fiancée. After a few seconds, his hand finally rested on my waist. Stop it, Ella. I just picked her up with some friends. I even brought you your favorite mint milk tea. Don't be mad. I stared at him. The one who liked mint milk tea was Luna, not me. You left without a word to pick someone up, and you brought her here to our class reunion. I pinched the skin on his waist, but it hurt my hand instead. To everyone else, it probably looked like we were flirting. Stop showing off, class leader. Yeah, you're getting married soon, keep it classy. The old classmates teased, and I took the opportunity to hand out the wedding invitations to everyone. Amidst all the congratulations, Luna glared at me sharply. She had dropped out of school and gone abroad during our second year of high school. She didn't belong at this reunion. There was no invitation for her. She had drunk too much. Her face was flushed, and she started to stumble, falling toward Ethan. He immediately caught her, his eyes filled with concern. Luna leaned fully into his arms. His brow furrowed, his fingers trembled, as if he were holding something incredibly fragile. I was surprised Ethan wasn't always this cold. When he first started his business, he'd come home late every night, and I'd prepare hangover soup and light dishes for him. Once, I accidentally cut my finger, and he rushed me to the hospital to get it bandaged, even insisting on a tetanus shot. He didn't show much emotion then either, just patted my head. Dummy, don't wait up for me next time. Go to bed early. I thought that was love. That Ethan just wasn't expressive, which was why he didn't show his worry. Luna is drunk. I'll take her home, he said, quickly walking out. Ethan. I called his name, hoping to snap him back to reality. I'm the one he loves. I'm his future wife. I'm the one who's supposed to spend the rest of my life with him. He paused for a moment but kept walking, never even turning around. Chapter 3. I became the talk of the reunion. Everyone was whispering. I heard the class president chased Ethan. Once Luna left, she swooped in. Seems like Luna used to bully her. Now she's getting her revenge. I saw Luna with some thugs at a hotel back then. Her belly got big, and she had an abortion. Then she left for abroad to recover. Why is Luna back now? Isn't she ruining the class leader's wedding plans? Can they still get married? The truth of what happened back then was vile, and I was the only one who knew it. These rumors were a mix of truth and lies. The most important thing in life is to keep moving forward without looking back. Let the shadows and scars stay in the past. Only by moving forward can we find happiness. I longed for happiness. I wanted to leave the past behind and start a new chapter with Ethan. But the past clung to me like a shadow. I drank silently from morning till night. By the time I stumbled out of the booth, the cool evening breeze sobered me up. I was only wearing a thin dress, making my pale skin stand out even more. A car pulled up in front of me. The license plate looked familiar. Wasn't this? A wave of nausea hit me, and I leaned against a tree, vomiting. Ethan got out of the car and draped his jacket over my bare arms. The strong scent of perfume on his jacket made me vomit again. Disgusting. Get away from me. I pushed him away. He coaxed me into the car, saying it was too cold outside and I shouldn't freeze. If I wanted to yell or hit him, I should do it in the warmth. In my hazy state, I agreed. The car was filled with Luna's scent, and this time, I vomited all over his suit. A suit worth 7 figures ruined, and Ethan didn't even flinch, as if the suit wasn't his. As if I wasn't his fiancé. I rolled down the window and threw the suit into a trash bin as we passed by. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the mint milk tea. I stuck a straw into it and offered it to him. He took a sip and said it was good. I found it ironic. When I cooked, even when I accidentally used salt instead of sugar, he'd always say it was delicious. When I tried on clothes, he'd say I looked great. Whenever I went for business deals, no matter how they turned out, he'd say I did an amazing job. Only now did I realize that all the emotional support he had given me over the years was just empty words. As we parked, I suddenly asked, "Do you love me?" Chapter 4. After a moment of silence, he said, "Of course." He looked down, avoiding my gaze, and tucked the stray hair behind my ear. His warm breath lingered on my collarbone, sending shivers down my spine. His deep voice, always so tempting, always deceived me completely. I couldn't stand the tension any longer. Everything felt like a lie, even the love seemed stolen from Luna. I cupped his face. "Look at me. I'm your fiancé, Ella." His dark eyes held clear guilt, like someone caught in the act. I jabbed his chest. His muscles were firm, just as they'd always been. But the thought of him using this body, the one I loved with Luna, made my heart tighten. He was my man, the first love I had cherished, from school uniforms to wedding dresses. We were so close. "Ethan, aren't you just pathetic?" I slapped him, and he stared at me, stunned, holding his cheek. It was my first time hitting anyone. I didn't hold back, and my hand hurt a pain that still paled compared to what I felt inside. "In school, you were Luna's lapdog. She never cared about you. She only dated you to make her boyfriend jealous. When they got back together, she dumped you. Do you remember that? Her boyfriend sent some thugs after you. They beat you up so badly that you were left bleeding in the alley. I was the one who saved you. You were tall and heavy. I couldn't carry you, but I dragged you to the hospital anyway. I don't know where I got the strength. All I could see was the blood on me, terrified that you'd die. I sat in the hospital all night." Ethan froze, touching the scar at the back of his neck, where the knife had cut him. He had heard the cries while he was unconscious. "Wake up! Ethan, hang on! I haven't told you my story yet. I like you." When he woke up, the first thing he saw were my swollen eyes and cracked lips. With great effort, he whispered 2 words. "Who are you?" Hearing his voice, my face flushed, my heart raced, but I was just relieved he was alive. I leaned close to his ear. "Ella Shen." From that moment, those 2 words were engraved in his heart. But when Luna returned, he forgot all the pain, forgot the 10 years I had loved him. Back in the present, he held the back of my head and kissed me fiercely. It was rough and intense, as if he loved me. Before, I would have been overjoyed, kissing him back eagerly. Now, I just stood there, letting him kiss me. After what felt like forever, he released me, wrapping his strong arms around me, resting his chin on my head. "I'm sorry." I felt like a clown, my beautiful youth wasted. As if trying to make up for it, he kissed my cheek. "I messed up today. I shouldn't have left you. I shouldn't have let you misunderstand my relationship with Luna." I sneered. "Misunderstand what? You hugged her, took her home, your clothes still smell like her." He looked at me as I listed all his crimes, like a cat with its fur standing on end, wanting to argue but saying nothing. I glanced at the 10-carat diamond ring on my finger, torn between laughing and crying. Chapter 5. 10 carats, for the 10 years we were together. But 10 years couldn't compare to one Luna. After our fight, I moved back to my old house in the old district. The old lock, damp and moldy walls, and dusty furniture stood in stark contrast to our luxurious wedding home. I felt at ease here because there was no painful love, only deep sorrow. "Dad, Mom, I'm back. Stop fighting. Divorce, it's better for you and for me. If you don't love each other, why stay together? Isn't it painful?" I spoke to myself as if they were still alive, mediating their arguments. To marry my mom, a renowned beauty, my dad went from being a poor boy to a businessman. But happiness didn't last. My dad became addicted to gambling, the company was mortgaged, and debt collectors came to our door to humiliate my mom. I was just a little girl, but I stood in front of her and said, "Leave now, or I'll call the police and have you all arrested." They swung iron rods, smashing the TV, fridge, furniture, and my favorite Barbie doll. "Pay your debts. Your dad owes us money. Next time we'll cut off his hand." My mom cried all night, and at dawn, my dad came back smelling like perfume. "Where were you? You still know how to come back? Shut up, bitch." I watched my mom grab a kitchen knife, crying and cursing. "You promised to love me, never let me suffer all lies. Look in the mirror, you're old. I only love beautiful women." Later, I found out that after gambling, my dad went to a brothel and lost the last bit of money. That morning, my mom didn't send me to school. Before I left, she kissed my cheek and said, "Be a good girl, study hard, live well." When I came home, police surrounded our house. My parents lay in a pool of blood, my mom holding a knife. The police said debt collectors came, and my mom stabbed them all, including my dad. My dad had insurance, my mom named me as the beneficiary. I became an orphan, surviving on the compensation. Ethan lived next door. His mom took care of me, bringing food and comforting me, encouraging me to make friends. She often shared stories of Ethan's childhood to make me laugh. I silently watched him, learning everything about him. But he didn't know me. He was good-looking, smart, polite, perfect. He liked Luna. I couldn't bear to see his heart broken or him bullied. So, I saved him, enduring Luna's bullying, never giving up on him. In the end, it was me who got my heart broken and bullied. I opened the curtains, letting sunlight in. Closing my eyes, the old smell took me back to before the tragedy. My dad brought me gifts, my mom braided my hair. They never fought. Chapter 6. I love Ethan truly. It's only been 3 days since I left him, and already I've lost my appetite. I eat just 1 meal a day, feeling weak and dispirited. I sigh whenever I try to sort out my emotions. I don't want to let go, to hand him over to Luna. I put on my clothes and slowly walked out of the house. The sunlight outside was blinding, but my face was dark as if clouds were gathering overhead. Rock music blared in my earphones as I kicked small stones along the way, feeling a little bit better. When I looked up again, I found that I had unknowingly walked to Ethan's company. My eyelids drooped as I came to realize something. My subconscious was filled with him, and I had long since been unwilling to let go. The receptionist recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Harper. It's been a while. Let me take you in. Mr. Zhang is in a meeting right now, so you might have to wait a little." I turned off the music and started admiring every corner of the company. Some of the decorations were still the same. This company was also my hard work. That wall over there, I built it 5 years ago. The pathos by the window, I put it there. Even the lights, I visited countless stores to find the best value for our money. As the company grew bigger, it got remodeled, but now it had a cold, efficient atmosphere. One glance made my fingers tremble as I pointed to the desk across from the CEO's office. "Why is she here?" The receptionist, not knowing about our history, responded bluntly. "Do you know her? She's Luna, Mr. Zhang's new secretary." She then knocked lightly on Luna's desk and introduced me. "This is Mrs. Harper, our boss's wife." Luna glanced at me briefly and then lowered her hands from the keyboard. She gave me a mocking smile. "Mrs. Harper, we're not even close to that yet." She got up and walked behind me, placing her hand on my shoulder. "Isn't that right?" I remembered that Sunday by the cafeteria bathrooms. Her hands had been so strong as she shoved my head into the sink. The icy water filled my lungs, and my chest felt like it was being pierced by steel needles. I could barely breathe, my entire body shaking violently. Was I going to die? Would Ethan feel sad if I did? No, I wouldn't tell him. I didn't want to see him frown. She enjoyed watching me struggle, hitting me with a mop while dirty water splashed onto my skin, leaving red marks all over. I was soaked and begged her to let me go. She didn't move. "Ha ha ha! You like Ethan?" I curled up and nodded, swallowing my fear. "Well, he's my dog. If you like him, then that makes you my dog too. And I don't care if my dog dies, no one else is going to protect her." She yanked me up, my scalp felt like it was being torn apart, forcing me to bark like a dog. Remembering this, I slapped her filthy hand away and grabbed a cup, splashing the water at her face. Her thick makeup ran down her face, turning it into a messy palette. "Luna, in this world, everything comes with a price. I will pay you back for every single thing you've done to me." Luna grinned, unfazed. In his heart, who do you think is more important, you or me? She changed her expression, pretending as if she was about to faint. A shout came from behind us. "Ella, what are you doing?" I stopped Ethan from comforting Luna, blocking his hands. "Ethan, why can't you choose me?" He looked confused. "Stop making a scene, Ella." Chapter 7. It turned out he wasn't incapable of being considerate, just never towards me. People around us whispered. "Mr. Zhang cheated? With his secretary? Unbelievable. Mrs. Harper went through so much with him, and now he just kicks her out. Tsk, men really change when they get rich." Ethan carefully wiped the water off Luna's face and gave her the day off to rest. Then, with a cold expression, he dragged me into his office and pulled down the privacy curtain. "Ella, this is the office. Watch your behavior." I shouted. "You know it's the office, so why is Luna your secretary? Are you planning an office romance?" He covered my mouth, and I bit down hard. Noticing the band-aid on his hand, I asked, "What happened to your hand? Cut it while cooking?" I looked deeply into his eyes. "Since when do you know how to cook?" Ethan let out an exasperated laugh, pinched my cheek, and quickly changed the topic. "How are your teeth? None of your business. You only care about Luna." I sat in his chair and looked up at the photo album on his desk. Our wedding photos stared back at me, such a perfect match. We looked like we were meant to be. I had almost had a family. But everything changed the moment Luna came back. Luna needed a job after returning from abroad, and my secretary had just resigned, so I brought her in. Was it just a coincidence, or was it always going to be her? Ethan hesitated briefly, then tried to brush it off. We were classmates. I was just helping her out. I took a deep breath and wrapped my arms around his neck, gently running my fingers over the scar on his skin. Ethan, we're about to get married. Do you still remember what you said when you proposed? He nodded, his expression dazed, as if lost in the memory. On the yacht, rose petals covered the deck, and drones in the sky formed the shape of a ring. Ethan walked toward me slowly, the sea breeze gentle, his eyes even softer. He knelt on one knee and opened the ring box. A big, bright diamond sparkled inside. I said I'd give you a home. Ethan, will never betray Ella. If there's a third party, I'll leave with nothing. May I never rest in peace. We had signed a prenuptial agreement. If he cheated, everything he owned would become mine. I couldn't help but wonder just how far he was willing to go for Luna. Chapter 8. We ended our Cold War as if nothing had happened. Just like before, he was busy with work, and I was curled up on the sofa, watching TV. We hadn't eaten together in a while, let alone had a meal he cooked. Distractedly, Ethan prepared spicy crayfish, adding peppers and sprinkling scallions on top. I knew this was Luna's favorite dish. She once poured chili oil on my school uniform, and for an entire day, my classmates laughed at how I smelled like crayfish. I watched him work, busy cooking for another woman. Unable to hold back, I finally spoke. I don't eat scallions, I don't eat spicy food, and I'm allergic to shrimp. But Luna likes it. Ethan must have brought her home while I was away, cooking for her. I noticed the leftovers in the fridge, dishes I disliked, things I couldn't eat. Ethan paused, looking indifferent as ever. You didn't used to? My chest tightened. He never really paid attention to me. He often came home late, the meals I made for him long gone cold. I would lie alone on the sofa, waiting for him. The TV played some boring show in the background, and I would doze off, only to wake and find that Ethan had cleaned up the dishes. It's been 10 years. So many nights spent just waiting. I kept telling myself that Ethan was working hard for our future. He was tired, and I needed to be more understanding. Once the company stabilized, we would travel together and spend every day by each other's side. But then Luna returned. Now, I couldn't see any future for us. Feeling exhausted, I forced a bitter smile. Right. I've always been the one cooking for you. How would you ever know my preferences? I dumped the dish he had just made into the trash and suggested we go out to eat. Maybe he felt guilty because he didn't say anything to ruin the mood. We walked hand in hand down the street. Ethan remained silent, and I resumed my role as the chatterbox, trying to fill the silence. I still haven't picked my wedding dress. The last one was beautiful, but you didn't get to see it. It was well tailored but a bit plain. I want to go for the most expensive one, covered in diamonds. It'll look amazing. Okay. Where should we go for our honeymoon? How about an island overseas? Far away from everyone, just the two of us. We could sleep in, have barbecues on the beach every day. Whatever you like. We passed by a bar, and Ethan suddenly stopped. Through the bar's window, we saw Luna surrounded by a group of men, forcing drinks on her. He let go of my hand and rushed inside. Ethan, don't go. But there was no response. Chapter 9. Luna cowered in his arms like a frightened rabbit. Her eyes red as she clung to Ethan's waist, trembling. I'm scared. Don't you know how dangerous it is for a girl to come here alone at night? Ethan shouted at her, his voice harsh but laced with concern. He never showed such intense emotion toward me, maybe because he didn't care as much. Tears streamed down her face like pearls. It was a shame she didn't pursue acting. I was feeling down and wanted to drink. Who knew this would happen? Thinking about the argument between us, his eyes darkened with unreadable emotions, and he muttered, It's my fault. The group of men weren't ones to be easily intimidated. One swung a bottle at Ethan. "Who the hell do you think you are, messing with us?" The boy had grown into a man, no longer weak. His muscles tensed as he threw punches. One man spat in anger. "Who is she to you anyway? She's no saint. She's always flaunting herself around here. We've been watching her for days, and she's open to anyone. She drank willingly." Ethan looked at Luna, who shook her head tearfully. "I didn't. They're lying." He believed every word she said, completely unlike the rational Ethan I once knew. I didn't intervene, didn't call the police. A part of me even thought it wouldn't be so bad if Ethan got beaten to death. If I hadn't saved him back then, that would have been fine too. I walked away, no longer holding anyone's hand. Chapter 10. Eating alone, going home alone. I was used to it, but why did my heart still ache? I told myself not to think about Ethan, not to keep humiliating myself. But I couldn't help it, sitting quietly by the window, hoping for that one in a million chance of seeing him. The room was dark and dead silent, nothing like a home for a married couple. I blinked away the stinging in my eyes. It was a.m., I was wide awake, not tired at all. I saw Ethan. I waved, forgetting he couldn't see me. Luna helped him out of the car, and they hugged at the entrance. I widened my eyes and shouted, "Don't hug!" The night concealed too much, but I clearly saw them kiss. I banged on the window, screaming, "Ethan! Don't do this to me! Did you forget your promise? You said you'd give me a home!" They couldn't hear me. The only one breaking down was me. Ethan came upstairs, and Luna left in a taxi. I opened the door, watching the elevator numbers climb closer to my floor. Ethan stepped out, bruises under his eyes, stitches on his head, with gauze wrapped around it. "You look awful." I started to shut the door, but Ethan stuck his hand in the gap. "Ella, I can't just stand by and watch a girl being forced to drink. Even if she were a stranger, I'd help." I couldn't bring myself to crush his hand, so I let him in, staring at the man who used to feel so familiar, now so distant. "Are you going to help her every time she gets into trouble? You say you love me. Have you ever thought about how I feel? You ignore my emotions, do you even care?" He frowned slightly. "I got her a new job. She's leaving the company. Ella, she betrayed me, hurt me. I can never love her again. I love you now." His voice was steady and honest, making me look like I was the one being irrational. He didn't know I had seen them kiss, so close and without a trace of hatred. My lips, pale like the cold moonlight, trembled with despair as I whispered, "We break up." The words hurt too much to say. Chapter 11. The wedding proceeded as planned because Ethan's mother suddenly fell seriously ill. She didn't have much time left, and her final wish was to see us married. At her bedside, I held Mrs. Harper's frail hand, sobbing uncontrollably. "Good girl, you're about to be a bride, don't cry, or you'll ruin your makeup." Ever since I lost my parents, she had given me the warmth of a family. She was like a mother to me, braiding my hair, cooking for me, and spending time with me when she could. I wished she could stay healthy forever, free from pain. If I could, I'd trade my life for hers. "I'm getting old and can't stay with you for much longer. My son will be by your side from now on. You two must live well together. A couple needs to be tolerant of each other to go far." Mrs. Harper seemed to sense the tension between us and gently tried to mediate. "Ethan, don't overwork yourself. Remember to spend time with your wife. Ella has been lonely for so long, now she finally has a home." For the first time, I saw Ethan cry. He bent down to embrace his mother. "Don't worry, Mom," he whispered. At the reception, I wore the most expensive gown, my makeup perfect, my hand resting in Ethan's. Our breakup didn't count after all. Ethan had cut ties with Luna and began learning about my preferences. He no longer stayed out late, learned to cook my favorite dishes, and watched shows with me. At night, he held me close, playfully nibbling my ear. "Ella, call my name. Don't ignore me." Everything seemed almost too perfect, too unreal. Before stepping on stage, he kept glancing at his phone. I thought he was nervously rehearsing his vows. But then the officiant asked, "Do you, Ethan Harper, take Ella Carter to be your wife?" Suddenly, a wave of unease and dread washed over me. A commotion stirred the crowd. Someone exclaimed, "Isn't that Luna? She's going to jump." Ethan sprinted off without hesitation, his face etched with panic, racing toward the rooftop. "Hey, Ethan, aren't you getting married?" The officiant was flustered, and our old classmates, eager for drama, posted furiously on social media. I didn't bother explaining. Instead, I picked up his phone, which he'd left on the table. I never had the habit of checking his phone, but now, it didn't matter anymore. I saw the two of them on the rooftop, and it only took one try to unlock the phone. It was Luna's birthday. Looking back up, I saw Ethan kneeling, begging Luna not to do anything reckless. The ring meant for me was now on Luna's finger, and I swear I heard Ethan say, "I do." What a lapdog, he even proposed to me on one knee. His contact name for Luna was Sweetie Moon. But for me, it was just Ella Carter. I scrolled through their chat history, feeling a growing numbness. "Ethan, when I broke up with you, I had no choice. He threatened to kill you if I didn't leave. I was so scared I couldn't bear to see you hurt. I thought breaking up was the best thing for both of us, but I never stopped thinking about you. Every moment I spent abroad, I missed you. I thought about how you used to tutor me in math and call me stupid, and it still made me smile." Ethan had replied, "Silly girl." The further I scrolled, the louder I laughed. It turns out, the real fool was me. Luna asked Ethan to cook for her, so he learned, even cutting his hand in the process. She sent him countless concerned emojis. "Brother, will Ella misunderstand? Brother, my family's forcing me to go on blind dates. They say I'll never get married. I'm so miserable I might as well die." And that's how today's melodrama came to be. I saved all the evidence. Then I filed for divorce. Chapter 12. I left the divorce papers behind and walked out that very day. Ethan comforted Luna for a long time, staying by her side until the sky darkened. Only then did he remember me. On the way back, he ran through countless excuses in his head, how he would calm me down, how he could keep me from leaving. After all, the company was about to go public, a scandal would be disastrous. He unlocked the door with his fingerprint, but the house was deathly silent, enveloped in darkness. He assumed I was upset, just like before. "Ella? Come on, don't be mad, baby. Sweetheart, I'll give you an even grander wedding, a beachfront ceremony with flowers everywhere. You'll love it." No one responded. He searched the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, the study, the balcony. There was no trace of me. Pacing nervously, he reached for his phone to try calling me. Then, he saw the divorce papers on the table, already signed with my name. The sight of Ella Carter on the dotted line was like a dagger plunging into his heart. A cold shiver crept up his spine, and his fingers tightened around the papers until his knuckles turned white. He stood there, frozen, dazed, muttering to himself, "This can't be. She loves me. She's loved me for years. She carried me to the hospital when I was sick, she cared for me, she even raised funds for my business. She gave me everything. She won't give up so easily. She came back after 3 days because of Luna. We were still planning to get married. Even if she was angry, she wouldn't leave me." He collapsed onto the couch, trying to piece together what went wrong. In the tangled mess of our relationship, the one thing he clung to was my love. "She's bluffing. If I just apologize, she'll come back." But he didn't realize that my love for him had an expiration date. I used to love him. At the airport, the wind was strong, and my hair whipped across my face, blurring my vision. I didn't even check the caller ID, but I recognized Ethan's voice, shaky and tinged with tears. "Ella, where are you? Please, come back." I stayed silent. I know you love me. Let's talk this through. I'll give you the wedding of your dreams. I promise there won't be any more mistakes. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I laughed, though tears stung my eyes. Ethan, you are so shameless. Just because I love you, you think you can hurt me as much as you want? You kissed Luna, you cooked for her, you kept her close, thinking about her all the time. Am I supposed to come back and watch you to date? There was a long sigh on the other end of the line. He must have realized I didn't call him Yan, that I was putting distance between us. That's when it hit him I knew everything. His tone changed. Ella, men make mistakes. We've been together for 10 years. Can't you forgive me for that? My patience had run dry. It was time to stop beating around the bush. Ethan, I hope you and Luna rot together. Get out of my life. And by the way, you got one more thing wrong. Listen closely, I don't love you anymore. Chapter 13. Sun, Sand, Bikinis. This is my life now. With billions in my account, I couldn't feel better. Men aren't reliable, only money sticks around, so I settled in Hawaii. Bought a beachfront mansion, paid in full, and now I just eat, sleep, and repeat. Curious about the drama back home, I opened WeChat and saw countless unread messages. The first pinned contact, Ethan baby. Damn, forgot to delete him. I checked again. 99 plus messages. Intrigued, I clicked in. Ella, I'll give you that perfect wedding. Where did you go? Why didn't you tell me? It's all my fault. I never meant to betray you. I just didn't want to hurt anyone else. Reading that, I nearly spat out my drink. How shameless. I've really ended things with Luna, Ella. Please come back. Who would believe that? The rest were voice messages, some tearful, full of regret. Ella, Mom's gone. She had a heart attack from all the stress. It's my fault, I shouldn't have let Luna upset her. Ella, I've had too much to drink, and my stomach hurts. I miss your hangover soup. Please, just come back. Even through his voice, I could picture his haggard state. Honestly, I felt awful too. The only thing I couldn't let go of was Mrs. Harper. On the night of that disastrous wedding scene, I booked a flight to Hawaii. While I was waiting at the airport, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Harper. In the video, she smiled warmly, and for the first time, she called me good girl. She had always said that once I married Ethan, she could officially treat me as her daughter. But after everything went public, our drama had become a joke. I couldn't suppress the lump in my throat, my voice trembling as I called her. Mom. She nodded, her tears falling. Ella, a man like that isn't worth it. Spend his money, travel, let him go, and take care of yourself. My son, I didn't raise him right. Just like his father. Ethan's father had run off with all their money and a mistress when Ethan was just 3 years old. Mrs. Harper had hated scumbags all her life. He doesn't deserve your love. Our family has wronged you. Then, she said the same words my mother had told me before she passed away. You have to study hard, live well. I wept, feeling like something was slipping away. My heart raced, I wanted to rush to the hospital. Don't come back, honey. Out of sight, out of mind. Let this old lady handle things for you. Under her gaze, I boarded my flight overseas. That was the last time I saw her. My last family member was gone. Chapter 14. Luna's schemes were finally exposed. Our high school classmates dug up evidence of her messy past, dating 3 guys at once, with Ethan just being a backup. Her real love was a thug outside of school, and she even had an unplanned pregnancy. Her parents, embarrassed by her behavior, took her abroad for an abortion, where she could study without facing gossip. A month ago, her parents were jailed for fraud, cutting off her financial support entirely. Desperate, she had to return home to find a rich husband to maintain her lifestyle. Her stories of forced blind dates and suicide threats were all lies to manipulate Ethan. And only that fool believed her. A friend of mine told me that Luna, all dressed up, had gone to my home, only to be thrown out by Ethan. Get out. This is Ella and my home, and you have no place here," he had said. Luna was stunned. The man who had been comforting her just the day before had suddenly transformed into the perfect husband. She couldn't understand what had changed and tried to cling to him. "Ethan, don't be like this, I'm scared. Anything Ella can do, I can do too. I belong here even more than she does." She flaunted the large, dazzling ring on her finger, reminding him that he had been the one to make the first move. But Ethan, with an expressionless face, took it off and threw it out the window. "What are you doing? That's valuable." Luna stomped her foot in frustration, but there was no stopping him. "Am I a joke to you?" Seeing his anger, she reached for his hand, but he flung her away hard. "I was your backup, just a step in your love life. When things went well for you, you discarded me. Now that you've run out of money, you've come crawling back to use me again. I cared about you sincerely. I refuse to believe you were lying. But the evidence is everywhere. It's not true. I love you." He sneered. "Love me? Or love my money?" Luna's face turned pale, then red. Seeing the flood of revelations in Ethan's social media moments, she realized her source of wealth had dried up. Defeated, she sneered. "What can you do, Ethan? You were dumb enough to fall for it. Ella had the patience to tolerate it." After Luna left, Ethan sat at the doorway, unmoving. He spent the entire day there, his mind replaying his 10 years with Ella. He remembered school days when she comforted him after Luna dumped him, her persistent confessions always cheerful, even after being rejected once, twice, 3 times. Eventually, he grew to like the girl who never gave up. During their startup days, they endured hardships together. She worked tirelessly to secure investments, her feet blistered, yet she never complained. She always put him first, solving his problems, taking care of him with meticulous detail. Each night, she left a little nightlight on while waiting for him to come home. The moment he walked through the door, she would run over, cling to him, and hug him, saying, "Ethan, you must have had a hard day. Ethan, you're drunk again. Here, drink this hangover soup. Ethan, lift your head. Let me wipe your face." Suddenly, the elevator doors opened. Ethan quickly wiped his tears and stood up. But when the door opened, it was just a repairman. The light in his eyes dimmed, and he punched his chest as if punishing himself. Was this how Ella waited for him every night? Hoping, only to despair. He had deceived, lied to, and hurt someone so good. No one would ever leave a light on for him again or call him by his name with such warmth. From that day on, Ethan called and texted Ella every day until he fell asleep, clutching his phone. But there was never a response. He drank himself into oblivion, crying over the divorce papers. In just a week, the once tall and strong man had withered away. One night, he ran into Luna again at a bar. Lifting his eyes, he asked in a dull tone, "Why did you come back? You've always hurt me. The scars are still there, ugly and painful. Because of you, I lost the one person who loved me the most. I even drove my mother to her death. She disowned me before she passed, calling me heartless, just like my father." Luna, seeing that her schemes were exposed and she couldn't get money from Ethan, dropped her pretense entirely. She clung to him, feeling his warmth. Her voice softened. "What did I do wrong? It's you who didn't realize your feelings. You kept thinking of me, knowing you shouldn't betray Ella, but unable to resist your restless heart." She whispered in his ear. "Every time you chose me over her." Of course, she was disappointed. And when someone's disappointed for too long, their heart dies. "Ethan, she doesn't want you anymore." Luna's words cut deep, like salt on a wound, harsh and undeniable. "Get out!" Ethan shoved her away, downing more alcohol. His stomach burned like fire, and he choked on the smoke in his lungs. Silent tears streamed down his face. He knew the truth but didn't want to face it. He had wronged Ella, leaving her alone at her wedding dress fitting, driving Luna home from the reunion, allowing Luna's drunken kiss on his cheek, and then pretending nothing had happened, going back to pick up Ella. He was a fool. He hadn't missed Ella's disappointed gaze every time she tried to stop him, but he always thought, "It's okay, she'll understand. I'm just." He chose to ignore it so his heart wouldn't ache. Ethan drank until he passed out, still muttering Ella's name, begging her not to leave. Luna, still trying to seduce him, whispered, "It's okay, Ethan. She left you, but I'm here." But something in her words triggered him, and he suddenly shot up, saying, "I lost her. I have to go find her." Stumbling out of the bar, he made his way to the old neighborhood, pushing open the rusty door. "Ella, I came for you. I shouldn't have fought with you. It's all my fault. I was so stupid. Come home with me." In the small room, with its simple furniture, cleaned by the previous tenant, it was barely livable. There was no reply. He collapsed onto the bed, the one I had slept in during my 3-day absence. His large frame made the small bed feel cramped. Breathing in my lingering scent, he mumbled in his sleep, "Ella, I won't drink the hangover soup unless you feed it to me. Ella, I really love you, I wasn't lying. If there's ever another man, I'll..." Chapter 15. I had a habit of writing my feelings down on paper when I felt bad. Expressing emotions through writing made me feel better. Ethan didn't know this because I always appeared cheerful and carefree in front of him. Afraid he'd find me too emotional, I always dealt with my feelings privately. I was trained to be patient, to not get angry unless I couldn't help it. Now, Ethan saw my notebook, his hands trembling as he held the pages. "Ethan, you're bad. Didn't you say you liked me and wanted to give me a home? Didn't you promise there'd never be a third party? Were those all lies? You favor Luna, everyone can see it. You brought me mint milk tea, but that stuff tastes like toothpaste. I told you I don't like it, but you never remember. I think you're dumb. You can't remember what I like or dislike, and you can't see who truly cares about you. You probably don't know Luna bullied me. She gets what she wants and destroys what she doesn't want anyone else to have. She stripped me, took photos to warn me away from you. Sometimes I even envy her. She has the means to get what she wants. But I like you, and I only know how to like you wholeheartedly." The paper bore water stains, and he imagined me crying as I wrote. "I bought you breakfast, kept you company after school while you did homework. You looked so cool when you were impatient. When you seriously studied, with the wind blowing your hair, you were so handsome. Over time, even your impatience became a habit, and finally, you accepted my 10th confession. I worry you don't love me, that you're just used to having me around. But when you proposed, I was ecstatic, and I decided I'd only marry you in this lifetime." Tears blurred the ink as Ethan read, trying to wipe them off, afraid of smudging more words. "Forget it, Ethan, treat me better. I'm easily coaxed. Just stop seeing her, wait for me at the door, and I'll forgive you." Clutching the notebook to his chest, Ethan murmured, "I really love you. We won't miss each other again. I'll bring you home." He asked everyone at the wedding if they knew where I went. They shook their heads, even questioning, "Didn't you love Luna? Why find her?" Ethan pulled his hair, cursing himself. "I'm stupid." He sought out my best friend, hoping she knew where I was. Seeing his desperate state, she couldn't help but give a hint. "I don't know where she is, but she must have told you. You forgot." He bowed his head. "I forgot? Where would she go?" Suddenly, he remembered. Honeymoon. Recalling my desire for an island honeymoon. During dinner, I mentioned it while he was distracted by his phone, likely chatting with Luna. Once again, he left me behind. That night, Ethan packed a few clothes and headed to the airport. He didn't know which island I went to, the world was vast, many islands. He decided to search them all, find me on any island. But I had already left Hawaii. Chapter 16. I returned to finalize the divorce and visit Mrs. Harper and my parents' graves. As soon as I landed, dressed in a trench coat and sunglasses, I walked briskly out of the airport. Unintentionally, I bumped into a tall, thin man. My shell bracelet fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. "Sorry." Hearing his voice, there was something familiar about it. "It's okay, I was in a hurry. I'll pick it up." He stood there frozen. After tossing the broken pieces into a nearby trash can, I was ready to leave. He suddenly grabbed my hand. "Ella? Is that you?" "Huh?" I pulled off my sunglasses, giving him a quick look. "Sorry, who are you?" Only then did I realize it was Ethan, a skinnier, more sun-worn version of him. He looked so gaunt, as if the muscles I once loved had all but disappeared. "I'm Ethan." "You're Ethan." "Oh." Seeing him again after 3 months felt like a lifetime ago. I had imagined this moment many times. Would I scream at him in anger or break down in tears? But now that it was real, I felt nothing. Calm, like I was meeting a stranger. Turns out, seeing the world makes it easier to let go of what you once thought mattered. "Where did you go? I've been looking everywhere for you and couldn't find you." His dejected look still held some of that same charm, despite the weight loss, but I no longer cared. "I just got back from Hawaii." "Hawaii?" "I searched the Maldives, Bali, even Santorini, but couldn't find you." We stood by the side of the road, waiting for a ride. There was enough space between us for another person to stand. I pulled my coat tighter, unable to read the emotions in his eyes. For some reason, he reminded me of my shattered bracelet, like he was about to fall apart too. Oddly, I felt the urge to twist the knife, because this Ethan was no longer the man I knew. "I told you before, I wanted to go to Hawaii for our honeymoon." His eyes filled with tears, and he stammered. "When?" "One night, during dinner. I was chatting with you, and you were distracted by your phone, probably texting Luna." I spoke as casually as if I were discussing what I ate for breakfast. He crouched down, like an abandoned puppy, his fingers scratching the pavement, muttering apologies over and over. People passing by started to stare, and I felt uncomfortable, so I patted him on the back. "You should get up. I'm not the one bullying you." Ethan finally stopped his childish behavior and looked up at me with watery eyes. "Ella, come home with me." Just then, the car arrived and pulled up in front of us. "I don't want to." I no longer cared about his feelings. I wasn't going to pretend to be happy-go-lucky anymore. I was going to follow my heart. Chapter 17. "Ethan, I'm here to finalize our divorce. Why haven't you signed the papers?" Our home remained untouched, in the vintage minimalist style I loved. I thought Luna would move in, but it seemed she didn't get her way. Ethan skillfully prepared a meal, 4 dishes and a soup, the corn ribs perfect for my taste. He didn't eat, just watched me. "I really love you." I almost spat out my soup, coughing hard. He gently wiped my mouth and handed me a napkin. "Thank you, that's enough." I lost my appetite and pulled out the papers. "Sign it." Ethan didn't move, his tanned skin and expressionless face resembling a bronze statue. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "I cut ties with her. I wronged you, my mom. I deserve death. Can you forgive me? I did awful things. Without you, I'm a zombie, living aimlessly. Don't leave, Ella." 3 months ago, I might have softened, but there were no ifs. No regrets, only lessons from mistakes. I had made too many mistakes with Ethan. Loving me means respecting my wishes. Understand my words, remember my meaning. I don't need you hurting yourself, doing self-pitying acts, or using needless sacrifices to guilt-trip me. Ethan's eyes dimmed, understanding at last. There was no chance for us. A mistake was a mistake. Okay. He had signed countless documents and billion-dollar contracts without blinking. This time, his hand shook as he dropped the pen. Bending to pick it up, his spine was visible. Painstakingly, he wrote his name, shaky and crooked. "Ella, where will you go?" I smiled, my eyes bright with anticipation, overlapping with the Shen Yao he remembered, making him dazed. I'm going abroad to study financial management. I've already been accepted. I plan to start a company and continue doing business. Ethan listened intently, remembering every word. He wanted to join my future, but there was no place for him. The chandelier cast halos, and I seemed to see Mrs. Harper, my parents, watching me with relief, saying, "Live well, love yourself,